today's digital era, the intersection of society and digital trust has become a subject of paramount importance. It's time to introduce the members of our fourth panel, Society and Digital Trust. In this session, we will explore a wide range of topics, providing you with insights of how trust operates within the fabric of society in the digital era. So our fourth panel includes Mr. Shailesh Gandhi from Satyameva, Jayate, Professor Debayan Gupta from Ashoka University, Mr. Manish Kumar from RealX, and Mr. Rohit Srivastwa from Cast Cyber Ventures. So please join us on stage. And ensuring a stimulating and insightful discussion is our moderator, Professor Akshay S., representing the IITB Trust Lab. So we request Professor Akshay to join us. So Professor Akshay is currently an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay. His research interests encompass a wide spectrum of formal methods with a particular emphasis on the verification of time, recursive and distributed systems, automated functional synthesis, and the formal modeling and analysis of probabilistic and dynamical systems.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone to this last but one session on society and digital trust. We have a very illustrious set of participants it's my pleasure to be the moderator to this afternoon. So in Digital Trust Lab, we've been hearing a lot of technical talks about many technical topics, including deep tech and so on in the morning, as well as industry collaborations and so on. And I think one of the aspects which is also a focus of the Digital Trust Lab has been the interaction with society and governance issues and policy issues. And this panel is going to touch upon some of these issues, which is not only on the technological applications, but also challenges societal applications and challenges when digital trust technologies especially, are being applied in our society. In this panel, we will touch upon a broad spectrum of these. So let me quickly give you first a short introduction about our illustrious speakers, and then tell you about what we're going to do here. Is there a revised timeline, or do we go with the same time as before? Excellent. All right. So we have as much time as we were promised. Okay. Yes. So the first speaker would be Professor Shailesh Gandhi, who likes to call himself a citizen empowered by RTI. Right, and he has been the convener of National Campaign for People's Right to Information Act. He was also a Chief Information Commissioner, and he will. Okay, simple. Okay, Central Information Commissioner. Thank you. And he is, among many other things, in 2010, IIT Kanpur conferred him the prestigious Satyendra K. Dubey Memorial Award for his exemplary dedication in spreading communal harmony and leading the RTI campaign. We also have Debayan Gupta, who is from Ashoka University. He is an assistant professor and also, I guess, a research associate still at MIT. Debayan held a faculty position at MIT, and also I think his primary areas of interest include secure computation, cryptography, privacy. He has started several companies and startups, and also consults on cybersecurity and cyber risk. We also have Manish Kumar from RealX, and he describes himself as a disruptive serial entrepreneur, maybe, and with many years, at least 2 decades of experience on building participative platforms for participative growth. And he will he is also a member of a few consultative committees on blockchain, and we've had several things on blockchain in last 2 days, and I'm hoping that he'll touch upon those issues as well as we go on. And finally, we have Rohit Srivastwa from KS Cyber Ventures, a serial entrepreneur, a recipient of Microsoft MVP Award on enterprise security, and he has been a liaison member at First.org, which is a consortium on computer emergency response teams across the globe. He has done several other things, too many to list here, and we will also run out of time. So he has also recently co-authored a book on personal data security and privacies for techies and non-techies called My Data, My Privacy, My Choice. So let's all welcome the panelists. So today we were thinking about how to organize this session. So I think what we will try to do is to have an initial address by each of the members, and then we will open up we will have some discussion between the members and then open up for questions, and hopefully this will take us through the hour. We'll start with some issues on digital governance, in particular transparency issues by Shailesh Gandhi, who will address us, and then move on to the larger question of digital trust, privacy, and security in the society. Then we will look at two cases of trust in digital trust systems. One is on financial services, and the other will be on recent technologies such as QR codes, passphrases, and so on. So this would be kind of our starting point, and then I hope to have an enriching session with all of you. Thanks. Oh, you prefer that?
Fellow citizens of India, various talks have been there since yesterday's workshop, all on technical aspects of digital security, digital privacy, I'm going to talk about a very mundane thing, a very pedestrian thing, saying digital to karo pehle. And I'm talking of the governance of India. We say we've got digital. We have the latest Aadhaar, we have the latest UPI, everything. But how does my government work? Let me describe a very simple daily feature. An average citizen goes to a government office to pursue an application or complaint or representation, and he may be told file nahi milta hai. 200 रुपया दिया तो फाइल मिल जाएगी, 500 दिया तो रिकॉर्ड चेंज हो जाएगा, 2000 दिया तो फाइल गायब हो जाएगी. This is the state at which it operates. And how much time does a file take to travel? Chandrayaan reached the moon in 40 days. Aditya, we know, is likely to reach 1.5 million kilometers away in about 110 days. But a file can take innumerable time, depending on the money put on it. We can't forecast the time of travel of a file. We have corruption. We have absolutely nothing called digitization in government. The name of digitization is given to scanning papers. When I reached the Central Information Commission, I was told we have to digitize. So what did it involve? Getting a contractor after the files were over to scan all the files. And nobody used the output. I changed that slightly and said all the papers that have to come to my office must get scanned first, and we'll make the file electronically. And it worked beautifully well, very efficiently, and it can work in government. For 2 years, I made it work without any software support, with no budget, nothing. Just on a simple desire saying that it must operate. And if it operates like that, what are the advantages? Changes cannot be made very easily in the files. If they are made, they can be traced as to who made it and so on and so forth. You do not need kilometers of space to keep files. The government spends thousands of crores of rupees on paper, files, space to keep these files, and a comparable amount to locate these files, because they can't find the files usually. Chori hona easy hai. It's very simple to manipulate files. For transparency, we often blame the poor public information officer. But the truth is the files just cannot be found. Electronically, all this would become a dream. But we don't do it. And my angst is that nobody is really talking of this as an agenda of the nation. It's too mundane. My government working on electronic systems is so mundane a topic. It doesn't attract academics, it doesn't attract the industry, it does not attract the media. So who's going to build the cat? the savings would be enormous. At least 30% to 40% of India's corruption would go down just by going electronic, and it doesn't take much time. There's nothing great required. But we are not doing it. Why is the question that I'm wanting to pose before this place. I'm saying trust in governance will improve tremendously. What I'm saying is nothing new. It is no rocket science. It's ordinary common sense. Will we do it? Before I end, because the time is short, I'd like to describe how electronic digitization is happening in a lot of places. Supreme Court has had an e-committee for the courts since 2005. Our current Chief Justice was the chairman of the Supreme Court e-committee. Bombay High Court until last year said we will become an e-court. So what did they do? Your petition will not be accepted unless it is sent by email. Fair enough, so you send it by email. But nothing will move unless you submit the hard copy. And then there are corrections, etc. So the hard copy is then scanned. And nobody uses the output of the scanned copies. What is used is the paper files. We are today at the forefront of the digital revolution in the world. We are talking of trust. Can we improve trust in our own government? And what can you do? I found in a survey that most Indian citizens crib for about 3 to 4 hours every month about what is wrong with India. My submission to you is, if you are convinced, spend 1 hour out of that time. Continue cribbing the rest of the time if it's good for your mental and physical health. 1 hour of that time, write a blog, talk to 5 people, talk to industry, talk to departments, and get them to start discussing this as to why we can't do it, and we can do this within a year or 2. It's not difficult. It needs no change in laws. It needs no change. All it needs is a will to do it, and that will is lacking. And citizens and media are not concerned. This is a charge I'm making. It's not the political class. It's we who are to blame. We say this democracy, we are badshahs and begums of this democracy, but we've gone to sleep. Think of it. Try and start doing something. 1 hour every month. Take out of your crib time to do something. And India can change. India will change. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Shailesh. Maybe we can have the next talk by Debayan. We'll have all the addresses and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Is that fine? Or? Yeah, please. So if you have questions for the panel, please note them down and keep them ready. We will come to them. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm actually going to start with 2 things. I'm going to start with a Supreme Court judgment from a few years ago. I'm just going to read out a couple of lines from it. Privacy is the ultimate expression of the sanctity of the individual. It is a constitutional value which straddles across a spectrum of fundamental rights and protects for the individual a zone of choice and self-determination. This is our Supreme Court. I strongly recommend everyone, especially the cryptographers, go read the Puttaswamy judgment in full. If you don't have time to read the whole judgment, I also recommend there's a very good blog by this chap called Gautam Bhatia. There's a very famous mathematician, Rajendra Bhatia. His son Gautam is a very good lawyer. There's this constitutional blog where he analyzes all of this stuff. We have some excellent judgments and conceptions around societal trust in the government, in the mechanisms of these systems, as well as our understanding of privacy. The problem is, it's written down somewhere, nothing happens on the ground, right? I came here to this meeting for the Trust Lab. The first thing that happened was I checked into a hotel. The hotel guy said, climate change, we're stopping all plastic. I'm like, okay. And therefore, in order to check you into your room, in order for you to get into your room, you have to install an app on your phone, right? It's 1 a.m., I don't have time. I'm like, okay. The guy takes my phone, So after you install the app, he has to enter a code. So he enters a code and he starts tapping away at all the permissions, location permission, this, that, and the other. And you have no choice because the app won't work without it, right? And you can't get into your room at 1:30 a.m. without that app on your phone. This entire story about informed consent is a joke. So how do we expect people to trust systems when it doesn't matter whether you say yes or no, you kind of have to say yes. And even if you say no, like Google reporting on your locations on Android, even if you did say no a few years back, it doesn't matter, right? The second thing is that even if, suppose I am a complete layperson, and suppose all the clever cryptographers here come up with some fantastic protocols, I see essentially a binary, an executable, an output. How do I trust that object? I'm not about to sit and decompile it. Most of it's proprietary anyway. So where does my trust in that object come from? It is built up using societal interactions over time. It's not just a short-term object saying, oh, here's a cryptographic proof, right? That convinces the cryptographers, which is a great first step. It's important to have. But then how do you get it to the next level, right? Second, I want to contend that just because for us, sort of computer scientists, it's easy to say that, okay, when we do the math, the worst thing that can happen is someone breaks indistinguishability or the secret leaks, right? And we say, therefore, this is insecure. What is the actual outcome of that insecurity is very interesting to see. Now, generally speaking, and here I'm drawing on mainly two legal scholars, Peter Swire and Daniel Solov, there are two conceptions of this. One is the one we are familiar with, the Orwellian surveillance state. We're saying that we're leaking data. There's some person sitting up top there who's gathering all of the data up, and that person is going to get us into trouble somehow if we do something that the powers that be dislike. That is one setup. Solov argues in the other direction, which is echoed by Puttaswamy in India as well, which says the greatest problems with individuals in their everyday lives, as well as the attacks on privacy, actually come not from surveillance, but from what they call inappropriate data flows, right? And this is perhaps epitomized by the famous book, The Trial by Franz Kafka, where this guy Joseph wakes up, there's two officers standing in front of him, and they say, "You're on trial, sir." And he's like, "For what? I haven't done anything." Like, "But we don't know, but we know that you're on trial and you must be arrested." That is the extent of our knowledge. Everything else is private, right? By the way, when we cryptographers say it's zero knowledge, right? It's very, very private. When we cryptographers say privacy, we actually mean secrecy. And these two are very, very different things, by the way. The Indian Supreme Court's conception of privacy includes, for example, compelled speech. So if a person forces me to say the word yellow 15 times, that is part of that story. It includes things like forced feeding, right? So like the problem is that we do math assuming certain things. And if the law of the land, the assumptions around trust, privacy, all of these things don't align, then all that will happen is that a certain number of people will read our papers, we get our citations, and that's the end of it, right? I do want to poke at one problem, which I hope many of you will think about after this is all over, which is, this is my favorite example for talking about this. I may have harped on with some of you about this already, so apologies for the double thing. I want to emphasize that thinking about privacy and trust and when these things break is very difficult to do with rule-based thought. So our entire legal system and a lot of our thinking in even tech is based on rule-based thought. Here are 14 things that are allowed, here are 5 things that are not allowed, right? Legally, you're allowed to turn left here, you're not allowed to turn right there. Mathematically, these two things must be indistinguishable universally in UC, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You write everything down. The problem is that in real life, just as I talked about my consent scenario, when you're talking to your doctor, when you're doing a lot of stuff, you don't really have consent. You don't have a choice. You're not an independent individual anymore. And therefore, we need to find some way to talk about purpose limitation, right? Not just one layer of thought. And this purpose limitation, I want to talk about one small example, which is automated license plate readers. These are these small cameras which read your license plate number. If you blow a red light or something, you get a ticket in the mail a few days later. These were grandfathered in because they automate away a simple thing, the police person standing by the side of the road, writing down your car number as you speed past. Now the problem is you gave them functionality X. What is functionality X? This ability to write down your number. You have no expectation of privacy because you're on the road, it's open. You're in public by definition. With 100,000 of these, Delhi has more than that number of a single company that I know of. Mumbai also has a huge number of these. Police can access your location without a warrant. I can track your car. Now, if I asked you, is someone allowed to put a GPS tracker on your car without a warrant? You'd probably say no. So the problem is you gave them permission to get X functionality, but they managed to get Y functionality. Right? This is extremely common in machine learning. You think you gave them a picture of your eyes, Microsoft tells them no. You actually learned about this person's heart health. Right? So this functionality creep sort of is very, very difficult to deal with. You can't pre-make laws and therefore policy is permanently stuck trying to catch up with technology. And we need very strong purpose limitation regulations ahead in order to even think about fighting this. I don't know the solution to this. Maybe we can have a fun discussion around that.
Thanks a lot, Debayan. We will move on to the third speaker. Manish will talk to us.
Yeah, so I'm thankful that since yesterday all the deliberations went more and more mathematical, and probably we have finally landed on the application layer of things. So we are talking sense and common sense. My limited realm of things are a lot easier than governance, a lot easier than abstract law. My realm of things is real world digital assets, and a limited larger scope that I would like to delve upon also will be around regulations and how we are kind of privileged in some sense that financial regulators are slightly more specific, and it has evolved in a kind of a stricter domain. So you have things that you can learn from, you have things that you can copy from, even if you're starting anew, and those gaps and crevices are constantly being fixed by regulators. So there is what is something called prudential regulations that one can look up to when you are doing something in financial services. So in that sense, the trust factor, has a certain north star, so to say, to go to. My platform is called RealX. We are a platform for fractional ownership of properties, the biggest asset class in the world, which has yet to be held in digital format. Our claim to fame is that sometime back, about a month back, we closed the first transaction which encapsulated direct beneficial rights over the property inside an NFT. So, and I'm talking about rights that are legally enforceable in courts of law. Now, this is something that there are two worlds that we are trying to merge together. It has taken us years of work and probably all my life experience to bring to fore something like that. Again, coming back, before I begin my slides, and my slides are slightly more restrictive towards the challenges in bringing the whole ecosystem together. What does it take to bring out a real world digital asset ecosystem, which is a kind of relevant current challenge a lot of people are trying to solve. I still say that it's a lot easier in my case because there are now North Pole guidelines that we follow. Let's proceed. So what is digitization of real world assets? Digitization of assets is a process by which rights to an asset, simply put, is you are able to encapsulate the rights to an asset into a digital format, which can be cryptographically secured, and rights can be transferable and things like that. By and large, this is done on blockchain, and tomorrow some other technology also may come in and it may replace blockchain. Next one. This is a very simplified overview of what does it take to create digital assets. As in terms of process, you need to verify the asset that you are taking. You need to know what you are taking in. Then there is a sale of the asset that is required. Then the asset itself, because we are talking about a physical asset, whatever the asset may be, the asset needs to get into an asset custody arrangement. The tokens, for the people who bought the tokens needs to be issued. And then, during the life cycle of the asset operations and maintenance has to be carried about. This is what I would like to talk about, for the most part. Can I have the mic? So these are the challenges that we face today when we introduce something like this into the market. These are market gaps that exist that are not essentially to be fulfilled by us. And until we do some of these things, the elements of trust do not creep in. Having said that, this is North Pole arrangement exists, but then until you plug many of these gaps into that, you are not a trustable ecosystem of play. So Aadhaar has an ecosystem of play by law also backing it, and similarly everything that we see has an ecosystem play there. The challenges come from, first and foremost, KYC compliance. We are talking about NFT, and you are talking about many types of KYCs required for many countries, many applications, different KYC requirements. So KYC is one. Registration requirements. When we are talking about real world digital assets, we are talking about registration complications, and we did properties, so you can understand that complication as well. Some of the assets may require registration, some of them may not require registration, some of the use cases within the assets may require registration, some of the use cases may not require registration. Income distribution. How do you send, in our case that's a relevant question, how do you send income generated from the asset to a owner abroad? Domestically, it might still be possible, especially in countries like India, which has a very efficient payment system. But how do you send that abroad? And that's a very complicated question. Taxation laws. Now again, how is it interpreted? It may be different assessing officers, talking different language for the same asset. So these things will evolve. And I'm talking about one country. You talk different countries, it's a very different, very complicated ballgame. And I'm talking, again, coming back to trust. Each of these goes to trust. Taxation, how do you, if you can't answer this to a customer, the customer is very reluctant to come on board. That is what I'm talking about. Token custody. So, who's in custody of, they presented, HSBC presented some time back. They were talking about custody. In our case also, we need 3 custodians, and I don't have one, even one. And they had it in-house, but if I had approached them, they wouldn't have given it to us. So that's the interesting part. So you have a lot easier way going forward, because you can imagine it and you think it is doable. If I imagine it, it is very difficult. The moment you say token, a bank account will be withdrawn. Normal current account will be withdrawn. So how do you build in such a case? So token custody, custodians aren't there. They are not ready. In fact, a good outcome of all the deliberations that we have had since yesterday will be some good custodians coming up who use these cryptographic methods to secure basic keys. If we have talked about very high profile use cases where more fault tolerance can be done, but I am very hungry for simple use cases like can we secure the use case, the keys today, and can we make things happen? Asset operation and maintenance, physical custody of the asset. They have physical custody of the asset, be it art, be it apples, or be it gold. It needs different kinds of custodians who are efficient in managing the custody of the assets. Then asset operations and maintenance, so if you talk about, let's say, aeroplanes, it will need a very different asset operation and maintenance from a property. So different assets, different asset operation and maintenance. And we are talking about spawning a huge industry, sub-industries that may happen. But until all of these is placed, the customer is the most scared guy. He is not going to trust you. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Foreign investment limits, until those are understood, how they apply, they are understood, and until the relaxation in that comes, as a second point. Grievance redressal, I was talking to someone some time back. Grievance redressal has to be addressed until we have some common norms, of grievance redressal. I've spoken to people from Trust Labs about these challenges that we face. Until we have something that we and other players can say that this is a common grievance redressal that we all can go to, solving by ourselves is a challenge. And if you don't solve it, you have a challenge with the customer's trust coming on board. Jurisdiction and fraud handling. How do you handle frauds when you're talking about tokens and jurisdictional challenges? Therefore, next slide, please. So yeah, this is all that I had to say around what all we think it will take to build the whole ecosystem at the very minimum for the customer to have faith and trust into an ecosystem of things that they are investing in.
Thanks a lot, Mukul. So we'll have our last presentation, a quick one, whatever the usual one, by Rohit Srivastwa. I think yeah.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's like getting closer to the time of winding off the event and packing up for home. So let's make it a little more interesting and coming back from all the maths and science to the real life and real world. So we'll be talking about digital trust in a very quick manner, where the one-line definition is your confidence in the digital system. And it could be anything. It could be as basic as a file system management to as large as PNP kind of a problem, which I don't even understand. And then there are a lot of other mathematical things which only few people understand in the world, and the rest of the world start using it. But how much trust do you put on such kind of a system is something we'll discuss today. And it all started with this one. So Khulja Simsim was the first one where a system was blocked or protected by something, and the world thought that, okay, we have a protection mechanism, but they forgot that someone else is listening to it, and that's the real adversary we'll be talking maybe multi-decades from that point of time. Okay. Yesterday we had a very nice conversation around the whole India stack, and Sanjay, thanks to you, a lot of questions were discussed, and we were very happy to see that, okay, the way the digital transformation has happened in the country, the way we are growing, the way we are easily using the technology to do a lot of stuff, call it Aadhaar, call it the payments, or even anything, the acceptance of QR code into Bharat QR and all of that stuff. And ultimately, QR code, as we discussed, somebody somewhere did a lot of mathematics to create this method by which a barcode, kind of a one-dimension thing, two-dimension thing, is going into a proper two-dimension data store, where in the black and white garbage looking content, you have a lot of data inside and can be used for anything. That getting accepted into India stack. So we saw a good amount of technology built by real good people being used in our daily life, starting from paying to a kirana wala to paying to a beggar on the street as well. That's what we saw in this whole QR code journey and the whole India stack. The point is, people build trust on it. Then, government has launched this, it's a good idea, we will start using it. But then they start losing trust, and it's a controversial topic. Why do we lose trust? Half of it is a media thing, half of it is the way we perceive those stuff. There have been news since 2018, right? Aadhaar breach, Aadhaar breach, Aadhaar breach. Did CIDR ever got breached, Sanjay? Not that we know of, right? But the point is, the way it was presented into the media, oh, Aadhaar has been hacked. Why? Because some government entity somewhere in some state was collecting Aadhaar information for some of the data, and they kept it into an open S3 bucket. Now, people who created it put a lot of brain behind it and how it cannot be breached into, but some utilization aspect brought you to a stage where the media headline says Aadhaar breached. The COVID data breach. Was it breach or was it scraping of content online? People don't know, but yeah, breach, and breaches do happen. That's not only from the government data, even from the individual your and mine data. I'm sure a lot of people would be knowing about this particular website, and if you don't, take a photograph, go home, try it out. A collection of more than 12.5 billion email addresses which have been breached, including passwords of most of the places. We have been hearing that, okay, password breaking, let's make the encryption which is used for password breaking quantum proof, right? Quantum safe encryption methodology so that nobody would be able to break it. Hang on, the attackers are not even breaking it. The attackers are just copy pasting it from a dump and using. So your idea of, 8-character password is easy to break in, and 14-character password will take 10 year, 12 year, 100 years to break in. Forget that. Even a 72-character password, all it takes is a right-click copy, right-click paste. So people don't break password these days. Attackers don't break password these days. And that's what the reality where we are living in. Privacy do matters, yes. And very rightly pointed out, Debayan, it's not the problem of data protection. It is the problem of data collection. Not that I'm a very big fan of Snowden himself, but yes, he showed the world that the kind of data collection which we are doing is one of the biggest culprit. And we may have a strongest mechanism, seismic zone proof, data center, with everything protected. And we were having conversation during lunch. A very well-known critical infrastructure organization in the country. A friend of mine just walked into it, asking for a register. On the second page of the register were the written passwords. Now, think of it. How much energy are you putting into securing that, and what's the reality? Where do we actually live? That's where we are, and which get connected to your social media. The place where the information, misinformation and disinformation, all of that is flooded so much that you need another level of AI to actually start identifying the right versus wrong. Plus, all the AI and algorithmic biases we have been hearing about, a lot of good conversations happening around that. And that's where the whole privacy thing rolls in. We spoke about our favorite Google collecting all the data, and they know about us, but we still use them, right? Oh, that much amount of data which they collected from me is okay, because that's making my life easy. I am happy to give my geolocation, because then using that, I know how much traffic is on the road and I can travel. But then, as we heard this keyword a lot many times in last few years, flatten the curve. The curve should not go beyond the line of care. In our world, security and privacy world, the data collection curve should not go beyond the creepiness. The line of creepiness should not be crossed. And that's what one of the important aspects is. Thankfully, government is working on it. A lot of people are working on it, brought something called as the DPDP, and everybody has spoken about it, that okay, that's very well needed. Is it required? Check. Yes, it is required. Is it timely? A lot may argue that, okay, yeah, it's a little late and we should have had it early. When GDPR can come early, why couldn't have we created something of that very early? Is it efficient? Is it effective by now? The time will tell how much do we, or how much teeth and nail do we provide to that act to work on something. Is the coverage enough? And that's where a lot of people are actually worried that coverage is not enough, because a lot of government entities are outside of the purview of it. And that's where the threat actor attacks, that's where the threat actors start looking at the aspect of the whole data stealing and data copying We have to worry about the attacker, which everybody happily say it as a hacker. But beyond that, we are worried about the own government looking creepily into your data. Or people have their belief that, okay, this is harmful for me. And we had a very lively discussion yesterday as well around that topic, that, okay, how much trust do we put in our society, in our government, our governance, that they will not use this data, which is now has a primary key called as Aadhaar number and all the keys in different databases connecting together, right? In that way, we are also worried about the hostile nation state, but that's one excuse everybody also uses when a large data breach has happened. Even if the password was passwd at 123, when something goes wrong, they say, oh, it was a sophisticated nation state attacker and that's why we lost the data. Because that's where you say that, okay, the other party has unlimited amount of money to attack you. We will discuss something about the tech journey because that has happened in last so many years. We started from the password on the time sharing systems in 1961. And from there, we have moved over to a lot of variety of stuff like passkeys and the password manager and multi-factor authentication, and multi-factor authentication becoming so easy, risk-based authentication. A lot of math and science goes behind it, but for the end user, it is still the easiest method they can use to opt in. Where are we in the real-world use cases? The real world is still not ready to accept that, okay, password manager is something which I can use to be actually safe. People say, oh, what if the password manager is breached? What if my data is leaked out from there? Without knowing the fact that, yes, you can have an offline password manager as well. You can have a completely disjoint password manager as well. Oh no, but that's too much of hassle for me to do, and what should I do, and why should I do? It's only 10 password which I need to remember, and then I add one number in front of everything, and my password for other accounts are created. We're talking about high-end systems to break passwords? No, we don't need them. QR codes have been one of the very interesting aspects. Suddenly, the societal trust on QR code have gone way too high. And not only with the payment system during the COVID times, the restaurant menus are available on QR code only these days. And you have to request that please give me a paper menu, because most of these restaurant menus are like you have to scan the QR code, it will prompt a WhatsApp message, you have to send hi, and you will get a PDF as an attachment to the WhatsApp message. What you got is a WhatsApp message, what you got is the menu, what they got is your name, your number, and a tick mark that this particular user has come into this place, ate something, I know what he ate, and what his choices are. Now where is the creepiness? Now where is the sharing of data? And by the way, this will not come under DPDP because you have deliberately shared this as per the Act. What can be done? What can be done is, and what's needed is education and awareness. A lot of civil societies are coming up and this should happen, that should happen, what Aadhaar should do, what India's tax should do, where the ethics of AI should come in. Where is that coming from? That's coming from the knowledge, the awareness, the education these people have got. At least they've understood the risk. And that's why they can question. And that's what we want. We're not saying that, oh, we don't want oppositions. We want those oppositions so that society can keep a check on itself and walk towards a better path which is helpful and at the same time safe for everyone. And in which these controls come a long way from users' experiences as well. What you face, then you report, you crib about it, you cry about it, and then changes comes. Like, I take one quick example for this. People jumped onto the bandwagon of QR code-based payment and UPI-based payment, where majority of the public who were using it did not know the difference between debit and credit. So the message on the screen would say the amount would be debited, amount would be credited. And they were not aware what's happening, whether the money is coming into my account or going from my account. From there, the user experience has gone up to a level where now the mobile app says, you are sending money, you are receiving money. That's where we have reached. And a lot of awareness has happened on that side. Like people have gone through all those frauds where someone would say, oh, you need an extra software on your phone so that we can help you. A lot of fraud happened from that using payment gateway. Thankfully, the payment apps have started saying that, oh, I can see your system. You have given permissions to an application which could be monitoring your activity. This is not safe. And this has to come from the corporate itself. Tell people about the issues. And that's how you can start fixing it. Including one of the one which I recently saw in Paytm, I think. It says, while you're on a call and still doing a payment, it says you are on a call right now. Be careful. It could be a fraud call, or if you're having a call with someone and while doing payment, your attention span on this activity, the payment activity, is low. So you may cause a mistake. Now this is trust, this is digital, this is society. That lingo used is more important for people to actually build the real trust. What is the future of the digital trust? A very, very long way to go. But what can be done? It's always a good time to contribute and bring change. Shailesh, that one crib hour of the whole month can be brought out and used into something good for the people. People call it as a corporate social responsibility. I call it as a personal social responsibility. That's what I have been doing from last many years. I have trained more than 2,000 students and their parents on cyber safe behavior online, cyber safety, cyber safe parenting, so to say. And then the second segment, I personally, on my personal social responsibility, I talk to a lot of aged people because kids have left them here and gone to America to learn more and earn more while they are stuck here that, okay, should I do the payment from my phone or not? So I've been doing a lot of sessions with them, and as Akshay spoke about in the beginning about the book, that's the book which you can check out. It was not a work of COVID. It was released just at the beginning of the COVID. So people said, oh, you used your COVID time very well. No, it was a lot of work behind that. And the reason was a lot of people used to pick up the phone and talk to me, "Arey, mera aisa ho gaya, kya karu? Hey, what should I do with my phone? What should I do with my email?" I said, let me dump all the answer into one exercise book, one workbook, which people can follow. The book is available on this site, and that's an interesting site which I have created. You can try it out right now on your cell phones. Go to this site called as infobleed.com, and you would realize the browser which you use to see this site, how much information about you this browser is already leaking, the bleeding of the information. That's needed for people to actually know what's risking them and be safe from there. So what are the action items? Just 3. Learn, onboard yourself, and educate others so that we can be on a safe digital society together. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Rohit. That also gives us a perfect segue into opening up this for a larger discussion. Maybe I'll start with one point that Rohit mentioned on the data protection, the digital personal data protection bill. I'd like to hear maybe Shailesh and Debayan's thoughts also on, what do you feel about the transparency and privacy issues in the bill, because we have started talking about these issues.
The data protection bill should actually be called Right to Deny Information Bill. That is the impact it has. If they said they are amending the Right to Information Act, citizens would have protested. They put it as data protection and most people don't know what the hell is happening. The truth is, the scope of exemptions has been widened tremendously in the name of privacy. And what constitutes private information that cannot be parted with should arise from the Constitution. Article 19(2) gives you a limited scope. Unfortunately, that is not being followed by the privacy people, and today everything is becoming private. Anything that somebody wants to retain confidentially, he says this is private. I think there should be some proper norms. And the Puttaswamy judgment, with due respect, 550 pages plus, I think it is. But you read the whole judgment, you cannot figure out what you would call privacy. There are various theories, various philosophies. And the Supreme Court in 4 cases says, what is privacy will develop on a case-to-case basis. Should citizens and public information officers go to the Supreme Court every time they have a problem about whether it's privacy or not. I think we are mixing up the debate very much, but this would need a much longer intervention.
Sure, and yeah, I agree. The judgment is not the right place for that. Then we need legislation for that, proper. With regard to the specific bill that you're talking about, it was very much, what's the thing? That privacy is not us keeping our details secret from the government, but the other way around. And the problems are the sheer number of exemptions, right? So it says that, oh, nobody is allowed to do this, and if anyone does this, here are all the government is exempt, right? So I think there was there's a lot of work that needs to happen on that sphere. I'll also bring up, when bills like this come out or rules like this come out, one of the main issues of trust is, when do I trust you, right? One is, I have built up a long-term relationship with you somehow, and I know that past actions you've taken have not harmed me, right? Or you've done good by me. And that is how one builds up trust over time, right? So your capacity to harm me, sort of the probability of damage should you become a threat actor, shall we say, right? That also plays into the whole story. And given that a lot of our discussions are about governments doing bad things, which they have, right? We can come up with good protocols, and sometimes that can truly help. Technology can obviate items of corruption in many, many ways, right? The famous example, Raghuram Rajan brought that up, train tickets. Sometimes there used to be quite a bit of corruption in getting the train ticket. And then they put the monitor up there that said, this many tickets left in this train, right? And now you can book online, and an entire area of corruption has gone away because of the introduction of certain types of technology. That can happen, but more often than not, when the technology itself is launched, look at the US baking in its own backdoor into A51 and A52 when cell phones were launched. Look at the accusations against Huawei, right? Look at what's going on right now. We are hearing this tiff between India and Canada, right? We are being told, oh, we know bad things because we intercepted the communications. The implication is we were listening in on the Indian officials, right? How did that happen? So if even high-level government officials can't trust their own communication system, how am I going to trust mine? So a lot of work needs to be done to build up that trust. This bill does not get us there.
Rohit, you want to also say something?
Hey, one thing is very easy to do a government bashing, and that's a favorite pastime of the country. We do that. But at the same time, we have to understand one aspect, and which is the key, but a lot get built up around that. The key was, national security. Anything which is related to national security should be exempted, and we should be working on that. And the privacy comes after national security. The national security always supersedes the privacy. But then a lot of people start building their personal interest around that. But can I use the same thing in my government department in the name of national security, but can do a lot? And that's where the exemptions are hurting us. We should not be giving that much free hand. And at the same time, at least some step have been taken. Let's see how the whole implementation comes in. I heard hirings are done by now, so let's see how we go towards the reality of the aspect.
From implementation perspective, we have very poor implementation of acts. And I would see the Data Protection Act mandates one or two things I will elucidate there where there are challenges. For example, the Data Protection Act mandates that as an intermediary, you need, as a data principal, you need to mandate a data, I think, ombudsman or something on every site, every platform. A similar requirement was put up by IT Act, and it was mandated. Even government sites will need to put up that. A grievance redressal officer was required to be nominated with the phone number and the email ID to be put up on government sites as well. and it's not there. IT Act is being revised now, and it's not been there since ages, decades. That has not happened. So now look at startups like us. Probably we'll have 13 odd people. How many grievance redressor officers and data protection officers and independent governing board members, et cetera, are we supposed to put up? So the challenges, is, and I say this pretty often when I say about company law also, I think when they make laws, they go overboard in imagination. And none of the secretaries can actually live up and do the job themselves. So you can't run a company. I can challenge any secretary, run a company exactly as per company law. You will not be able to run the company as per law. So you are basically creating systems which will default, essentially. There lies, the implementation challenge.
I'll just take a quick connection of what Debayan and Manish has said. One system is the number plate recognition system, which will put you a penalty. The other system is grievance redressal system. You should have this information. I'll give a quick anecdote of what happened to me. I was driving in Orissa on a highway and around 76 kilometer speed, and I got a ticket. When I looked at the ticket, it says 7,000 rupees. I said, why? When I went in detail, it says driver name not available, license number not available, car speed 76 kilometer. But the system says because the driving license is not available, there's an extra 5,000 rupees penalty. Okay, I caught hold of a senior police officer there in the network. He gave me an email address of the RTO office because the phone number is not visible online. There's only one phone number which doesn't work. It says the number is out of service, only one landline number. The e-challan portal where you can file a grievance, the submit button does not work. So I have a video recording of that as well, which I sent. I sent to this RTO. The RTO email address is at yahoo.com. I've sent them the email. Every Monday morning, I send them a reminder. So I have sent reminder number 19, and I have not heard back from them ever. And that's the grievance redressal. That's where the availability of phone number and a Yahoo email address. So that's a reality in which we are living right now.
Yeah, thanks. I think this actually shows how interesting this issue, important and diverse this issue is. Among 4 panelists, we have 4 different views on the same question, right? So yeah, we can take it up maybe outside these venues as well. Maybe at this time, maybe I can ask if there are others in the audience who would like to either weigh in on what people have said, or do you have some questions for the speakers? Yes.
Hi. I mean, it's a very simple question. I think I would get 4 different answers again. In terms of individual, trade-off of privacy versus utility, how do you see Indian society? Because Indian society is heterogeneous as heterogeneous as it gets. Where do we put our societal trade-off in terms of utility and privacy?
Sure, I can give it a try. So you're right, it's very heterogeneous. I was joking with some of the others earlier today that my students aren't angry the NSA is spying on them. My students are angry they didn't hit like. We live in an era of massive oversharing, right? The attention economy, as it's called, and it's not advertise attention. We want attention. Everyone look at me. That's the scenario, and so we are constantly putting ourselves out there, and very many Indians do not care. That is the unfortunate fact. But I will tell you, they only care until you complete the sentence. So usually they say, oh, I have nothing to hide. That's the usual thing. But if you complete the sentence, nothing to hide from whom? Right? What are people trying to hide from whom? Let's say someone wants to hide their sexual preference, or they want to hide their interest in a religion they're thinking of converting to, or they want to hide something else, right? Suddenly, the thing is, as long as you talk about it in general terms, right? Do you think privacy is important to you? Trade-off between privacy utility. People are very gung-ho, who cares, I have nothing to... The moment you bring it into specific terms, specific examples from their lives, things, then suddenly their answer completely changes, right? So I'll go back to something that was echoed multiple times, this concept of education. I'll use a different term. I'll say background awareness. So the example I like to use in this scenario is that of health, right? If your hand gets cut by a rusted nail, you know what you have to do. Why? Because we have background awareness of healthcare. This has been built up over generations and generations. You went to school, you were told these things, you saw it on TV. There were 50 other things that informed you. And that is not going to happen magically and suddenly. We need to build it up over time.
Yeah, to some extent, I think there is pari passu equivalence between Indian society and even advanced nation society. So Google did not originate here, and it originated Google, Facebook, etc. The typical do no evil guys originated, there, where these concerns were more heightened, and they built their business models, successfully there first, before coming here. So I think the trade-off was very well established in advanced nations first before coming to India. As a country, we are struggling for some basic things. And if you can provide, given that you don't away some really private, stuff, I think if you can provide some convenience, some succor to their daily lives, anything that can help them achieve their ends meet or things like that, I think the trade-off goes in favor of the other benefits they get in the as against privacy.
I'd like to put 2 points before this audience. One, in Hindi, Gujarati and Marathi, which are languages that I know reasonably well, the other Indian languages I am not familiar with, there is no real word for privacy. If you think the way privacy was used in the context of digital, it was more an equivalence for confidential. Confidential is very arbitrary. Privacy has certain connotations. So I'd just like to put it before all of you. Consider this, we were not so private, or privacy was not a concept that ruled very much. And the other point I'd like to put up with respect to right to information is, government has no right to invade my privacy routinely. If there is information that is routinely collected by government from me, and I give it willingly to the government, then it should be open to any citizen in right to information.
Yeah, thanks for that. Are there other questions? Yes, this question there.
Okay, so my question to all panelists is, okay, at the end of this, can you articulate, for example, one project that Trust Lab should do and is sort of within reach of Trust Lab that seems important because nobody else is doing it and Trust Lab could do it, given all of the conversation today?
All right, so maybe we'll make that the final question because I've just been told that we are running out of time. So this is also a nice question to end with, and I wanted to also bring this up. Thanks a lot. So could we go through all of you and each person?
I would submit, Trust Lab decides to cut down its paper and file requirements by 90%, and also tries to persuade IIT to do the same.
So I'll make a joke about the IIT thing. I strongly believe change begins at home. If you think that trust is important, step 0 should be making sure you have trustworthy systems running here. And I've seen many people, including a small joke I also made, talking about how much information is collected about us throughout our time here itself, and whether I can trust who's getting through the gate or not. All sorts of class issues regarding that have been discussed. I'd say try and solve that first. Second, I think having some clear mathematical definitions of trust in certain restricted scenarios that synchronize well with the laws of the land is really important, because we have loads of clever people building incredibly good protocols based on assumptions and scenarios that are in many cases based on Western laws, and many cases based on no laws, based on whatever seems like a good topic to research, right? So if we could have a good, here are a set of rules, theorems, if your protocol satisfies this, it will almost certainly satisfy Indian laws in some way, shape or form, sort of building in that conception, understanding what we mean by trust. That would be a fantastic set of projects.
Do you think there exists such a set?
I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, my ask will be very, very specific. So we, for startups like us, where we have a huge undertaking going to customers, we are handling customer money, and there is no regulatory protection or enablement. I think we need, independent organizations which can set up a code, a guideline that we can adhere to. So our digital assets can adhere to. That I can say that I'm happy to be audited, but there is something that they have created which has a very large ecosystem of brilliant minds, and we can simply go and attest to that and be audited on that. That is something very specific that you can do for us to move forward in a way that citizens can trust us, and trust can be created. So I'm talking governance, so help us with governance. All the brilliant minds that are there, we may not be able to accumulate all of that, and that may not be trusted. so a trust lab will be trusted, and we can trust the trust lab, citizens can trust the trust lab. So something like that will help. If the government is not giving a code, if the regulator is not giving a code, in the US this was done when FINRA, a body called FINRA was established. So I don't know how many of you know that in the US, the Securities and Exchange Commission does not specify rules about investor protection guidelines. It is done by a self-regulated body called FINRA. And therefore, so today the challenges that bodies like us face is, I don't have the, Aadhaar-based KYC or central KYC access, all of these places, access denied. You want to do good things, but you cannot do that because you are not regulated. So it is digital, kind of apartheid. I want to do things, but it's a lot more harder for me to do. So I would request, you to consider creating things that we all cannot be working on our own. I mean, there has to be some central bodies, that organization that we all can trust in. And I think Trust Lab, by the very name, kind of epitomizes that.
So there are a lot of things which can be done, outreaches and other stuff, and putting up the right recommendations from the industry side to the government side. But which is already covered. So I will come to a more practical request or more practical suggestion that can be carried out, Mukul, Manoj, and Sridhar. When we get a lot of students as interns, can we look at creation of smaller open source kind of a projects which is helping the human versus security bridging? Something like a browser extension which can people use to report a phishing somewhere, or which can actually tell people that, okay, the site you're trying to visit is a phishing site, be safe. This is very simple, and it's actually doable by students coming on for internship kind of projects. These kind of smaller activities. So a lot of people get fraud call from across the border. Smaller mobile apps kind of stuff in the open source market, which says the moment there is a phone call coming, all it does is flashes a national flag that, okay, this is a call from India versus this is call from which country. Those kind of things will make the high-end tech usable and easy for Aam Janta, and which is where the gap is visible, and that's where the outreaches, the application, all of these will help, and that could be one of the tactical suggestion which I could provide. Thanks.
I think what I followed, I would like to support him. Alongside my own proposition. What I was following through was there are research grants being given by Trust Lab. I think instead of very high profile research grants, which IIT can probably take care of from its own budget, the Trust Lab research grants should be towards more immediate use cases that we can cover, which kind of starts building the trust gap immediately. The quantum safe can wait a little bit more, but the spurious calls are happening today, and we need to plug them immediately. These are very small use cases, and I think you can do wonderful job by purposing research, into applications.
All right. I think we will have to end the session here. Thanks a lot for this really invigorating session. Thanks to all our panelists, thanks to the audience, and thanks to Trust Lab for giving us this opportunity. Thanks.
So thank you, Mr. Shailesh. Oh, sorry, Mr. Debayan, sorry. Mr. Manish, Kumar. And Mr. Rohit. We also thank our moderator, Professor Akshay,